What happens when your workplace is what you say it is, but you cannot leave? If you've been feeling frustrated, discouraged, distracted, or even powerless at work, trust me, you are not alone. A lot of people are dealing with toxic workplaces, weak leadership, unclear expectations, AI disruption, economic pressure, and non-stop noise from the news. And let's be honest, many of us feel emotionally exhausted. So first things first, your feelings are valid. You are not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You are not negative for noticing all the dysfunction. You are not broken because you're tired. But here's the problem. If all we do is complain, vent, ruminate, and replay what's wrong, we may feel momentary relief, but we do not create the change that we need. Today, we are going to talk about how to move from frustration to action. Not all that fake, phony positivity, not denial, not pretending that everything is fine when we know that it's not. But we are going to talk about some disciplined and grounded strategic action.
Yeah. Be professional with Dr. Burst and Dr. Ellison. From the janitor to the C-suite prophetic mission.
Action. My name is Dr. Ellison, and I have my partner, Dr. Burks, who is our HR expert. I serve as our COO, and I am your leadership and business strategist. And we are coming today to this conversation from a background of service, leadership, business, and scholarship. So whether you are sweeping floors or you work up there in that C-suite, we have seen what pressure does to people. We've seen what dysfunction does to teams. We have seen what happens when people lose hope, they lose perspective, or even their sense of agency. And we have also seen something else. People are more powerful than they think they are when they stop spiraling and start acting with intention. The workplace can make people feel like they are replaceable. AI is making us feel like things are uncertain. The economy can make us feel trapped. And all the stuff in the headline news can make us feel like everything is falling apart. But our life is not built on reaction. We have already told you, we encourage you to watch some of our other videos. Our life must be built on principle, on clarity, and on action. Dr. Burks?
Hi, professionals. It is nice to see you again. This conversation has been something that Dr. Ellison and I have been talking about, and we've been trying to figure out how to package it and deliver it with respect to opinion, but also to be mindful of feelings, but also incorporate logic, hence the topic. So, Dr. Ellison, if I could kick things off with our scripture. So the scripture of today comes from, and this is the English Standard Version, and this comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 20 through 24, and it reads, "Do not despise prophecies, but test everything. Hold fast to what is good. Abstain from every form of evil. Now may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit and soul and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. He who calls you is faithful. He will surely do it." So, Dr. Ellison, what do you think about that scripture so far?
Of course, I love it. And I especially like the part about testing everything because, like I said at the top, our feelings, they are valid, but sometimes we have to test what we're actually feeling and then trust God and consult Him as we are seeking His wisdom about what we should be doing. And I just think that that's a phenomenal word to anchor ourselves on as we are talking about what we are seeing and what we are feeling, because there's a lot going on in today's workplace.
Agreed. A lot is an understatement. So, professionals, I thought Dr. Ellison and I have been very intentional with bringing in content and conversations and topics that we see in the workforce present day. And so there are one article and then another conversation, I'll call it, that I want to present for Dr. Ellison and I to discuss. And then, of course, we look forward to hearing your opinion and the comments. So, Dr. Ellison, could you give us document number 1? So, professionals, I pulled this from Reddit. And you can pause and read it yourself, of course. So I'm just going to give you the meat around the bones. But the title says, "What is really the difference between a logical and an emotional decision?" So that is up for all, your own personal interpretation. But the reason why I liked this poster specifically is because they made it around, you know, separating that logic cannot exist without emotion. And then they went on to provide two examples of how one option is logical and then one option is emotional. So the option one said high job placement and job security, comfortable wage, regular hours. One may say that that's the most logical decision when choosing a career. Or on the contrary, option two says low job security, highly competitive field, low wage, irregular schedule. Now, Dr. Ellison, reading between the two, I think option one sounds more logical and option two is a little more emotion led. What do you think?
So we have option one, high job placement, job security, a comfortable wage, and regular hours. And I do think that that is very logical as far as decision making. And then with option two, you don't know if the company is going to keep you or not. It's very insecure. It's very unstable. However, the field is very competitive. The wages are low. The schedule, you don't know if you're going to be working first shift, second shift, third shift. And so option two is definitely one that if it was me, that wouldn't be my first option for sure, Dr. Burks.
And I agree because Dr. Ellison and I did not become experts in our field without having to lead with logic a lot of times. So yes, we take pride in our achievements. And so emotionally, that is something that we, take pride in. However, we had to be very intentional with using logic behind our why. When we decided to, pursue and I should say God created be professional, but when we were ordained to carry out his vision, we had to do it logically and intentionally. And, the conversations Dr. Ellison and I have behind the scenes is always about intent, impact, why, and how does it help individuals. So, Dr. Ellison, do you have any other examples or something that you can add on to an experience that you had or something you read?
I mean, the primary example and what really drove us to have this discussion today is a lot of what we are reading in workplace commentary, in the chats and discussion in workplace forums. And let us say this and just be clear. Your workplace, it probably is toxic. It probably is. And it makes sense that you're exhausted and your leadership, they probably do lack integrity. And it would make sense that you are discouraged. It would make sense that you are frustrated. And if you are trying to keep up with artificial intelligence, layoffs, inflation, it would make sense if you feel mentally scattered. But let us remind you and let us encourage you that your emotional response, that's not the enemy, but your unmanaged emotion. And just as Dr. Burks talked about logic versus emotion, that can become a trap for you. And complaining, it may feel like it's productive because it gives your language and what you're complaining about, it makes you feel like you've been heard. But rumination can feel like some type of analysis, but neither one of those, complaining, rumination, neither one of those things ever moves you into future action, productive action. At some point, you are going to have to ask, what can I do with this energy? And why am I spending it on outrage? And I believe Dr. Burks and I talked about this in another video, that there are people that are profiting off of you suffering, being in pain, having outrage. They will go into a comment section or into a chat. They will pull the pin on a grenade, light it on fire, blow it up, and then just leave you in there to ruminate and to complain. But that is actually not productive. Dr. Burks?
Can I give an example, Dr. Ellison, if I have your blessing? So since we know we have a society that is highly emotionally driven, we have a society where all it takes is one person to appeal to emotion and people flock to them. It doesn't matter if there's any fact behind it. It does not matter if it's something that can be proven. All it takes is, I like to call trigger words, and people run with it. But then when you have an individual that tries to present something to you with a little logic, not to discredit, your lived experience, but to also give you hey, well, let's look at it from this perspective, people typically run from them. So I'll give you an example. So I'm a Mary J. Blige fan. Okay. Love Mary. Love Mary. But somebody, professionals, correct me if I'm wrong, but tell me that you have never heard somebody say, I like Sad Mary. I like her music when she's sad. When she's happy, her music doesn't sound the same. So her fan base, a lot of them play on her emotions. Isn't that crazy? So logically, it's really unfortunate that her unhappiness is tied to the quality of her music. But again, that goes back to emotional response. So I'm hoping that as we move into it, the goal is to not offend, like Dr. Ellison said, or to discredit, or to, we had a whole video about burnout. Y'all should go watch that. But the point is, like Dr. Ellison said, now what? Okay, you feel those things, like we know this happened. You can't make sense of things that don't make sense, but there has to be balance. Dr. Ellison?
Yes, and I really do like, what you said there, because as I am going through these chats and these comments and on these various platforms, as Dr. Burks and I are out and we are consulting and talking to clients, we see the complaints and the ruminations, and they are valid. Your workplace is toxic. It is hostile. We have people in positions of leaderships, and they are not fostering environments for employees to grow. And we completely get that and we understand it. However, with the way that the marketplace is right now and the unemployment rate and all of the things that we tell you about, the longer you rehearse powerlessness, the more powerless you feel. Toxic environments are often training people into helplessness. They train you to believe that nothing you do matters, and you also start to shrink your expectations. Rarely do I see someone go into a chat or a comment section and they're actually giving solutions, or they're actually like, hey, well, all of us in this chat or this comment section have these complaints. Let us come together and create our own business or our own, solution, or create a community. It's just a bunch of people that are in an echo chamber and everybody is sharing the same pain point or the same experiences. And that trains you to give up before you even try. So you don't even want to go to work tomorrow. And once that mindset settles in, you stop looking for solutions. You stop building, you stop preparing, you stop imagining for a better future. And that is why this conversation is mattering so much, and it matters today, because the answer is not to suppress your feelings. The answer is to convert what you are feeling into disciplined movement. Because what happens when your workplace is what you say it is, but you cannot leave because you got car note, you got rent, you got daycare, you got kids, and you can't leave? Okay, your feelings are valid. Now what do you do with that energy besides going to the comment and to the chat and to complain about what we see? Because the truth is, there are some people in positions and they make it hard for us to navigate in these workspaces. Dr. Burks?
And professionals, just for additional context, Dr. Ellison has said this to me before. There have been so many times where I have had grievances, especially in my field. I always say, who's HR for HR? And so being in this position, we see the nuances, we see the policy changes, and we also see the reaction from staff. I say all the time, HR sometimes is the corporate punching bag because we're not necessarily creating these policies, but we have to execute them irregardless. So I have had times where I've come to her with complete frustration and she will let me vent, but there's always an action item behind it. It's typically, okay, so now what? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do about it? And it was off-putting initially because my first reaction was, well, I'm upset, so complain. But in it, I realized she was just trying to help me keep my emotions productive. And so what do I mean by that? Using Dr. Ellison's example, you can go into a forum, you can go into a chat room. Absolutely. You can deep dive as much as you want. But if everybody is just showing agreement, but nobody is presenting an out, then you're just it's like a never ending cycle of, we know people are upset. Everybody's perception of toxic is different. I've been in positions where I had leaders tell me that, oh, we're a family. This is a family environment, which is a huge red flag. We can cover that in another video. And so because of that, it already showed boundary issues. It already showed that they want to be in my business. So the toxicity looked different. Now, Dr. Ellison may have experienced a toxic work environment and it may look different from her. That's not for us to measure whose was worse, but instead for us to say, we agree, like we've mutually experienced it. How can we move forward? Be Professional exists because that's what we are here for, to help our clients navigate these challenging situations. Dr. Ellison, can you pull up document 2 for me?
Sure.
Perfect. Okay. So this article is called What Drives Human Behavior, Emotion versus Logic. Now, I am not going to butcher this author's last name, but you see it. And I'm assuming the first is Leanne, but I'll let you read it for yourself. But if you look at it, the first thing it says is that emotions account for 90 to 95% of our decision making. Dr. Ellison, before we look or talk about it more, do you agree?
I definitely agree because we talk a lot about IQ, we talk about intelligence, but it's not very often when we talk about professional development, professional growth, do we talk about emotional intelligence, EQ, emotional, and how we are using that to drive our decision making. So yes, I definitely, I mean, I see it all the time. I've had, so many employees that will have things happen in their department or their section or their team, and they will come to see me in the C-suite and they will say, you know, Dr. Ellison, can you move me to another department? And I was, no, that my first reaction is no, like we need to discuss this further because the grass is not always greener. You want to move because you are having an unresolved, a lot of times you want to move because of feelings, not because it's a logical reason why you want to move. You have a goal in mind. The goal that you want to achieve demands that you stay in the department that you're in. But because there's something emotionally happening in your department, your first instinct is that you want to move and go somewhere else. So I definitely, just in my experience, emotions are going to account for people making decisions. That's why people leave jobs and they go somewhere else only to find out that that next place got the same, new level, new devil, new place, same face. And it's like you think the grass is going to be greener somewhere else, but anytime you go somewhere else that has human beings there, you're probably likely to encounter those same set of issues. And so, how do we get our power back? So I definitely agree that emotions account for, if not 90 to 95% of the decision making, I would say that the bulk majority of our decision making is emotional.
You're right. I mean, if you look and the author specifically does a shout out, and I like the fact that she mentioned that emotions are intertwined with logic and that emotion can drive decisions. For example, let's say I lived in an apartment and my family is growing and I am tired of paying rent and I'm ready to invest in something myself. And so now my emotion is I want something better, but the logic is also being applied because my family is growing. So I know we're going to need space. We don't want to keep investing. So that's an example of how you take an emotional response, but also put logic behind it to move forward. Now, let's say I had the same feeling of, okay, my family's growing. I can't really afford to get a house right now, but I want to, keep expanding my family because I want to get these kids out of the way while I'm still young. I want to be a young mother at the graduation. I'm being facetious, but all jokes aside, it's okay to want it. That's the emotion. But what are you doing to position yourself to get it? So it shouldn't be a either or. They should be able to exist at the same time, but you have to, in my opinion, balance how you apply it and when you apply it. When you decide, when you determine that this is something that you want, like Dr. Ellison and I, Be Professional didn't just pop up. It wasn't just a name. We didn't go into this with the name of Be Professional, but we knew we had an intrinsic passion and calling to do it. We still had to put in work. We still had to, like, there was more to be done. And I will not lie, when we were going through those doctoral programs, Dr. Ellison, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes my emotion told me, why am I being an overachiever? I'm already an expert in my field. But the logic behind it was because there's more beyond this situation. There's more work for me to do. And so instead of taking the emotion and allowing it to fester or manifest into defeat, I chose to take that emotion and understand that if it's this hard for me to do it, then I'm going to take that and use it to propel me forward, which I'm so grateful that I did because I wouldn't be before you now. What do you think, Dr. Ellison?
I definitely agree with what you said, and I really want the professionals to know that in no way, shape, or form are we minimizing feelings, and are we minimizing discernment? Because we do need our feelings. We do need to have discernment because feelings, and we need to just repackage feelings. Feelings should alert us to what we need to be thinking about. Our feelings are like our internal alarm system that there is something that demands our attention. So in no way are we minimizing what you feel because we are working in some hostile places, many of us are. And there's a lot shifting right now. We are a nation that is in a conflict slash war, whatever we are calling it, from day to day. The economy is shifting. We're bringing new technologies into the workplace. So we're not in any way minimizing feelings. But I will tell you that a large part of our new economy is for your attention. Attention has become a large part of our economy, and getting you to complain in these platforms and these chats and these comment sections is how a lot of people are growing their views and their platforms. They're pinching and pointing on your pain points and getting more subscribers, more views. If you take a look at the platforms that are actually doing problem solving and actually helping you reframe and rethink solutions, those don't have as many views as the ones that like to pull the pin on the grenade and have everybody in there complaining and ruminating over their problems. And with that being said, Dr. Burks and I do have a few practical moves that you can actually start to implement today. And the first action or practical move that you can start to implement today is to reclaim your circle of control. And you can start by asking this question: what is actually in my control right now? Not theoretically, practically, this week. Maybe you cannot change your boss. Maybe you cannot fix your company culture. Maybe you cannot control the economy, because we can't. But you can control your preparation. You can control your skill growth. You can control your habits. You can control how you respond. You can control the boundaries that you put in place. You can control what gets your best attention. A powerful exercise is to make two lists. One is a list of things that are outside of your control, and the other one is what is within side of your control. And then stop spending your premium emotional energy on that first list. That alone can change your mental clarity. So write down 3 things that you can control this week, and then take one concrete step on each one of those things. What do you think about that first practical move, Dr. Burks?
It's genius. I don't have anything to add to it. I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off of you. And if I could give an example real fast before we move on, look at it like this. You may not be able to control when the sun goes down, but you can control when you go in the house. You can control when you take your shower. You can control when you lay down to go to bed. You may not be able to control when the sun rises or what time you have to be at work, but there are some preparation, there's a preparatory things that you can do to better align you to deal with those uncontrollable factors. That's it.
Okay. Practical move number 2: get your notebooks out. Practical move number 2, professionals, is to build a community instead of isolating yourself. Because the pain that we are feeling right now, those feelings that we have validated, can be isolating. And one of the greatest mistakes that people make is being discouraged in these type of seasons and then isolating themselves. Toxic workplaces love isolated employees. Isolated people are easier to manipulate, easier to discourage, and guess what else? Easier to silence. Community creates a place where you can develop your resilience. Community creates perspective so that you are not in an echo chamber. Community creates opportunity. That community may be a mentor, a faith community. I am a veteran, so I have a veterans network, a professional association, some sort of mastermind group, a trusted friend, a small circle of serious people who are committed to growth. You don't need a large crowd. It could be virtual. You need a few grounded people that you can grow a community with, people who are going to tell you the truth, people who will help you think clearly about what you have going on, and people who remind you that your current environment is not your whole future. So reach out to one person this week for a real conversation. Not just venting, but actual strategy. So for all of those people that are in these chat comments and these comment sections, pick a couple people out of there and be like, do y'all want to form a community and figure out how we can support one another? What do you think about practical move number 2, Dr. Burks?
We lived it. Dr. Ellison and I met long before we were doctors. And we connected because we were in a mutual situation. We were both new to our program. She had her own competing commitments. I had my own competing commitments, but our commonality was we were still pursuing a goal that we weren't required to. It was 100% our decision, but we created our own community naturally amongst one another. So when it was time to do homework, if it didn't make sense to her, she could call me and vice versa. We learned a lot about ourselves personally and professionally just through collaboration. But one of the biggest things that I admire about Dr. Ellison is her level of discernment. When you, like she said, go in those chats and build community, but also make sure that you possess discernment, because you have to be mindful of who you have around you. And if I can add something to, a practical step for you, go into these chats, and as you build community, don't be afraid to express an opposing view. Why is that important? Because you don't need to be around a bunch of agreeable people. And just like with any friendship, if you cannot express your feelings or give them feedback on if you feel they did something wrong, then that is not a friend. I even went into a chat today, for example, and it was very anti-HR. And it was a gentleman on TikTok. He was giving feedback on how you should manipulate conversations with HR. Not the first time that I've heard this before, but instead of being frustrated, instead of doing a deep dive in the comments with a bunch of people that I know agree, I went in and I just gave a different perspective. I chose to use it as an opportunity to educate. That does not mean that people will receive it, but there's going to be a couple of people that will see those comments and those interactions, and at least, even if they never agree with me, it causes them to think. That's all.
Awesome advice. Now we have two more practical moves, professionals. Number 3, and write this down with your number 2 pencil. Leverage and expand your skills. So, one of the most effective ways to stop feeling powerless is to make yourself more valuable and more adaptable, which we told you is one of those skills that high value companies are looking for. And it's not because your worth comes from your performance, but because options gives you more freedom. So if you feel like you are stuck, then you need to start up leveling your skills so that you can create more options for yourself, which is going to give you more opportunity, which is going to create more freedom for you. Next, many workers feel trapped because they have not yet translated their experience. So how do you translate your experience? We do have a video for you that talks about your skills and how you can translate your skills. Ask yourself these questions. What do I know how to do well? What problem can I solve? What skill or set of skills do I have that saves me time, improves quality, reduces confusion, or strengthens a team? And then turn around and ask yourself, how can I sharpen that skill? How can I communicate better? How can I apply it in new ways? And this matters even more because we have artificial intelligence that is shifting the workplace. So even if you are working somewhere that is garbage, it is trash, just sit there and use it as an opportunity if you cannot leave right now to sharpen your skills. Just go there. It's just training. It's a training ground. Look at the skills that you have, ask yourself those questions, and then find ways to just level up in what you believe that you are good at. And people who learn how to work with tools, communicate clearly, think critically, build trust, solve problems will always continue to matter because there is no robot, there is no artificial intelligence that will ever be able to replace a person that has really good skills, that is trustworthy, and that can think critically. Technical change does not eliminate value of wisdom, that skill of adaptability and disciplined learning. So I am challenging you today. Dr. Burks is going to straight challenge you today to choose one skill to strengthen in the next 30 days. Update your resume, your portfolio, your LinkedIn, or your accomplishment list. Document your wins. What you write down is important. There is actually some psychology behind writing these things down. What do you think about practical move number 3, Dr. Burks?
I agree. And
All right.
if I may add real fast, I promise, just real fast, you can do this just because. I think you should invest in yourself, period. Not to be a better employee, not to align yourself with a position, but there's a beautiful thing to walk in the room with a skill set that nobody had to teach you. So you can come in with a greater demand and you know your worth, and you can bring, like, one of the things that we typically do in interviews, and Dr. Ellison, I'm sure you can agree, we want you to give us scenarios. Like, we want you to speak confidently about your capabilities. And when you know you have mastered these skills and you're continuing to improve them, you don't have to go in there and put on. You can just speak freely because you live it. That's it.
Right. Now, practical move number 4 is a powerhouse. This one is probably one of my favorite moves. Engage civically and locally. Another way people feel powerless is by believing that they don't have a voice beyond their job. Your job is not all there is to being you. That is not true. You are more than just an employee, a boss, a team leader. You are more than just what you do at your job. You are a citizen. You are a neighbor. You are a contributor to our society. You are a builder. There are legitimate ways to influence the environment around you. And one of them ways is to vote. Because guess what? If we're not actively participating in the voting process, a lot of stuff that is happening in these workplaces will never be changed. So I encourage you, if you don't vote, go and register and participate in that effort. Next, participate in local community efforts. Support organizations that are solving real problems. Learn how systems affect your work and your family, and get informed without being consumed. Civic engagement reminds you that your life is not limited to what happens inside that building that you work in, your inbox or your team chat. It reintroduces you to what your agency. So the next challenge for you is to identify one local or civic action that you can take this month. Keep it practical and, of course, keep it lawful. Every little small action matters. Dr. Burks.
And I will just add, see it as a task and not a, I don't want to say obligation, but when you see it as an objective, it makes, in my opinion, and what I've seen, you're more compelled to be excited about it and to want to do it versus I have to get up on Saturday morning and I wanted to sleep in. Like, see positive things, like go into it with an open mind and to walk away. And if you are really working the room, because I am highly extroverted, and one thing I will do is work a room, and I may not talk to everybody, but a lot of people will be talking about me when I leave, and I mean that. But be intentional and go with the intent to walk away knowing someone else, an other organization or opportunity, something. And networking isn't just about people. Networking can also put you in front of initiatives. And now I love nonprofits, are my babies at heart. And use it as an opportunity to educate yourself, because you are your best investment. And nobody, and I mean nobody, Dr. Ellison, correct me if I'm wrong, is coming to save you. There's a video on that. But if you don't invest in you, then what would compel someone else to do so? That's it.
And professionals, always remember to guard your attention. If we are constantly flooded by headlines, trends, outrage, gossip, distraction, our clarity is going to suffer. Not everything deserves our reaction. Not every trend deserves our attention. Not every headline deserves emotional residency in our mind. Attention is a strategic asset. I just told you that is the part of the new economy. If you lose control of your attention, you lose control of your own direction. Be informed, but do not become consumed. Set limits on all this doom scrolling we are doing. Replace noise with substance. Read, think deeper, pray, reflect, plan, focus. Try to remove as much digital noise as you can for the next week or so. I just, want to encourage you to do that. And Dr. Burks and I want to remind you that your feelings are valid, but they are not a strategy. Validation is the beginning, not the destination. Power grows when you focus on what you can control. You are not as stuck as you feel if you are willing to act with some discipline, a little bit of courage, and some consistency. Always know, if work has been wearing you down, hear what we have said clearly today. There is still work that we can do. There is still influence that we can build in our community. There are still some skills that we can develop. There are still some choices that we can make, but we have to start small. We have to start now. But at the end of the day gonna end, and we have to start. And we hope that this video helped you, because we saw a lot of people complaining, but we didn't see a whole lot of people offering you any solutions. And just know that we pray for you, we encourage you. Now you go encourage someone else. And as always, be professional.